Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah Sudhismriti purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavat padam shankaram lokashankaram. Now we are continuing our discussion on the Mahavakyas. And today I'm going to briefly discuss rather I'm going to give a preliminary discussion or description of the Mahavakyas, Prajnanam Brahma and Ayam Atma Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma, that Mahavakya comes in Aitareya Upanishad, which is part of Rigveda tradition. And Ayamatma Brahma is part of the Atharva Veda traditions come Mandukya Upanishad. Now, before actually entering the subject, a few things about this, the text and this Mahavakya. As I mentioned, the Mahavakya actually appears in the Aitareya Upanishad called Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam, in short, all that we can say is, Prajnanam is awareness, consciousness, knowledge, which is by itself, which can stand by itself. When we use the word awareness or consciousness or knowledge, normally we mean that somebody is aware of something, somebody has knowledge about something, somebody is conscious of something. So this awareness at the empirical level cannot stand without an object attached to it. But suppose you can think of awareness by itself, prakashayana jnanam, prajnanam, then that awareness is non-distinct and non-different from our own true nature, our own Atman. This is the central theme that we will discuss in course of time when we take up the Aitareya Upanishad. Now, in the Aitareya Upanishad, there are a number of subjects discussed, and these philosophical topics are discussed using a particular method of analysis. In a way, it is called Adhyaropa and Apavada. This Adhyaropa is a very interesting word. Adhyaropa means, you put something on something else. The classical example is you superimpose silver or silverness, you got Rajatatvam in Sanskrit, on Suktika. It is a mother of the pearl which has got a resemblance of silver, which may be mistaken to be silver. For the time being, when you mistake, in a way you are creating silver. So it's called Drishti Srishtivada. It's a one interesting school of Vedanta which we'll discuss in course of time after this particular section is over. The world exists only so long as you see the world. It's a very high philosophy. In a way, it means Srishti of creation or emergence of anything is dependent upon you're being aware of it. If you are not aware of it, it doesn't exist for you. Called Drishti Srishtivada. Now, for example, a man who mistakes a piece of mother of the pearl for a silver, or using a more popular allegory example, a person who mistakes a piece of rope for a snake, for the time being, when he's running away from the so-called snake, which actually not a snake, but only a piece of rope. He goes, he runs for a stick, he brings the stick and he beats it, it doesn't move, so then he brings light and he realizes it is only a rope. Now, where did the snake exist? In his mind. So who created the snake? His mind created. He actually superimposed his snake idea or the memory in his mind of having seen snakes somewhere in the zoo or somewhere else in the past. That memory makes him superimpose the snakeness, not snake, snakeness, or the idea of a snake on a piece of rope. This is sometimes called, in Vedanta, it's a very important word, adhyaropa. So, Vedantins use a very interesting technique. First, they try to explain the world. And then, as they explain the world, they make it clear that the so-called world or anything that you see really has no existence independent of Brahman. In other words, snake has no existence independent of the rope. Even when you mistake the rope for a snake, you are actually seeing the rope as a snake. Similarly, when we live in this world, when we think that this body is permanent, the experiences that the indriyas, the senses bring to our mind are permanent, we are going to live it till eternity. All these wrong notions are like superimposing permanence of Atman on impermanent Jagat. This idea behind. So, the superimposition called, first you try to explain, all right, do you think this world is real? All right, come on, this world is real. They go on analyzing. And then you find everything in the so-called world really is not permanent. But at the same time, nothing can really exist without some reality behind. The world as world is unreal, but the world as Brahman is real. Now come to the analogy. The rope as rope is real, the rope as snake is unreal. The Brahman as Brahman is real, the Brahman mistaken to be the world is unreal. So, to give an example, one may just imagine, how does an Advaitin, a person who has realized the truth of Advaita, how does he live in this world? If you understand this, it becomes very clear. He may be living in this world, he may be drinking water, he may be going to Kaiser, he may have medical insurance, he may be traveling in a jet plane. But if he always keeps that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, that realization in his heart, he will think, well, I am traveling, my body is traveling. I am eating food, my body is eating food. I am interacting with people. All these are different names and forms of the same Brahman. You can see a pot made of clay, a jar made of clay, a glass made of clay, but you are seeing only the clay, not the pot, not the jar. Because what's the difference between a jar made of clay and a pot made of clay? The clay in a pot is in one form, it has one particular certain form, and the pot in a glass or a jar has a different form. Because of the difference in form, you give them different names. So, what is called Jivan Mukta, means somebody who is still living in this world, living like all of us, but actually is liberated from the idea that he is Atman, as the body-mind complex. But he is fully aware of the fact that he is Atman as Atman itself. So, the snake as snake is unreal. Or rather to put it, the rope mistaken as a snake is unreal. But the rope understood and recognized as rope is real. The whole world is real as Brahman. The whole world is unreal as world. Now what's the meaning of unreal? That also needs explanation. We should remember, it's a very interesting, complex subject. I often tell, if you really understand Advaita Vedanta, it's the easiest, simplest, most straightforward common sense and wisdom. But if you don't understand it, it is almost incomprehensible. So when we talk about the world being unreal, what we mean is, the world is not permanent. The world is not beyond changes. The world is within changes. The world is impermanent. The world undergoes the changes called Sadvikaras, means 6 changes. Jayade, Asti, Vardade, Viparinamade, Apakshiyade, Vinashyati. It comes into existence and it exists for some time, it grows, it evolves, decays, it disappears, it dies, and again is reborn again. Like that, everything undergoes these 6 changes. Everything in this world as an unreal entity is subject to changes. Even if you take the pot and clay example, for example. Well, suppose you are a pot maker, you go on making different instruments, different utensils, different jars and pots from clay. You break the pot and make a cup out of it. You break it, you make a jar out of it. But actually, if you're a pot maker, you'd be actually seeing only the clay taking different forms. Similarly, this Brahman is actually taking different names and forms, and when we misunderstand that these names and forms are permanent, then we see all these empirical phenomena are eternal or real. But when we realize the truth of Brahman, we recognize the fact that these are names and forms can never be permanent because they come and go. This idea is mentioned in the Aitareya Upanishad. As I mentioned, it's come from Rigveda tradition. It actually is from Aitareya Aranyaka. So it is associated with a great sage called Mahidasa. And his name is mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and so on. He is supposed to have lived in ancient times, and somehow he did not get full recognition from his father. So the distressed young man went to a forest hermitage and did meditation, and God appeared before him as an angel and taught him wisdom. So he actually became known as Aitareya because his mother's name was Itara. So he came to be known as Aitareya, and this Aitareya Aranyaka is part of that tradition. Is associated with Aitareya Aranyaka. Every Veda has got 4 classifications. That is Samhita, Brahmanam, Aranyakam, Upanishad. Samhita mostly contains praises, hymns, praising different deities, Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Agni, etc. Brahmanas contain mantras and descriptions of different Vedic rituals. Aranyaka are mostly prayers and meditations composed by great sages who lived in forest hermitages, who meditated on the natural phenomena, and in their name a number of the Aranyakas came into existence. Upanishads constitute the highest philosophical and metaphysical and spiritual truths mentioned in the Vedic literature. So Aitareya Aranyaka has got Aitareya got five Aranyaka sections, five Aranyaka sections in Aitareya Aranyaka. And among them, the second Aranyaka has got three chapters, the fourth, fifth, and sixth. I mean, the fourth and fifth and sixth chapters of second Aranyaka constitute what we now understand as this Aitareya Upanishad. So, one important point to understand in this Prajnanam Brahma is this concept of Adhyaropa and Apavada. So, as I mentioned, Adhyasa is the real word. The word Adhyasa is popularly known in Vedantic terminology as Adhyaropa. Actually, the real Asa Upaveshani, that is the Dhatu, and there is an Ati which is a prefix, and then it is followed by a Gan Pratyaya. So it actually means superimposing something on something else. That's the real meaning of this Adhyasa. So first you are taught how we superimpose or how this world functions, assuming that this world is real. And then, after that, you try to understand the nature of the world. And when you understand the nature of the world, you understand that actually this world as such has no real existence independent of Brahman. The snake has no real existence independent of the rope. The silver has no real existence independent of the mother of the pearl. So this is the easiest way to understand. So first Adhyaropa, then Apavada. Apavada implies understanding the truth that Atman alone is the only absolute reality. And even the so-called world of names and forms, in reality, in their true nature, is not distinct and different from Atman. So, in other words, creation is actually unreal. In the sense, creation is not eternal, it is not permanent. Again, you have to, this can very easily be understood in the light of the analogy. Actually, this rope snake comparison, and also the mother of the pearl and silver comparison, they are so apt because it happens to everyone and we can very easily understand. See, we are superimposing snake on the rope because there is not enough light. We cannot see it is real rope. Similarly, because of ignorance, because of our attachment, because of so many samskaras in our mind, we imagine this world of empirical experiences are real. And then when we analyze, actually this can be done by anyone. You can yourself see. Let's say your relationship with your neighbors, your friends, or anyone for the matter, in business, anywhere. You analyze. Can we ever say that any human relation is eternal? After all, every relationship in terms of human body is related to this life, this birth. In this life, one is son, daughter, mother, father, and so on. But Vedanta believes in reincarnations. You are not related to those persons in the same manner in your previous life, nor in next life. That is one way of understanding. And even if you analyze very seriously the nature of human relations, you find they are not absolutely real in the sense they are all relative experiences. There's a kind of relativity. There is a degree of impermanence to all human relations. So that will naturally make us think, but is this something that is real? Then you go for the transcendental higher reality. So the so-called snake is you take a stick and you beat it, you move it, it doesn't bite you back, it doesn't move, then you find something dead, then you bring the light, which is only a rope. So, in other words, apavada means bringing the light, taking a piece of stick, raising the so-called snake, which is actually a piece of rope, then you understand it's only a rope. In real life, through meditation, through spiritual practices, you realize this. Now, this process in the light of the Mahavakyas, you may call it the journey from Tattwamasi to Aham Brahmasmi. In the Mahavakya tradition, I mentioned this earlier, that to keep in mind the 4 Mahavakyas. The Upadeshavakya Tattwamasi is the Upadesha Mahavakya. It comes in the Chandogya Upanishad, the 6th chapter. Uddalaga instructs Shvetaketu, the absolute reality, the external truth is that only the Atman only, and the Atman is you yourself, Tat Turmasi. When Shvetaketu listened to this, he did not understand it. So he asked his father, repeat these instructions. There are 8 repetitions with 8 drishtantas or examples. Finally, he understands the truth of the instruction, and he understands the truth, and when he understands, it's called Aham Brahmasmi. So Tattwamasi, Upadesha, takes the form of Aham Brahmasmi as Anubhuti. I mean, Tattwamasi instruction eventually leads to Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman, I am the all-pervading reality, this experience. And when you experience this, then you realize that what you are actually searching for, what you are actually striving to understand, that is actually you yourself, but not this body-mind complex, but the eternal reality within yourself. So that famous mantra which I quoted many times, it comes in the Chadusutri. At the end of Chadusutri, Shankaracharya refers to the statement, Annishtavyā atmavijñānāt prāk pramātruttam atmanaha annishtasyāt pramataiva papadosādivarjitaha. So Annishtavyā atmavijñānāt prāk pramātruttam atmanaha. So, well, pramatrutva means the status of the inquirer, the investigator, the one who is trying to understand. That is pramatrutva. Pramata is the one who realizes, so who is striving to realize. So we are an investigator. We are an aspirant of the absolute truth. Only till we actually realize. When we realize, what do we realize? Anvishtasyat pramataiva papadosādivarjitaha. So papadosādivarjitaha pramataiva anvishtasya. Means the one who was discovered, who was realized our true reality, our true nature, that was realized actually is non-distinct from ourselves, but not this body-mind complex, but the Atman. That fact is explained in the next Mahavakya, that is, I am Atma Brahma. I am planning to give very superficial, initial, introductory description of these 2 Mahavakyas, which are in some ways related, because I am Atma Brahma is considered to be Anusandhana Mahavakya, Dididhyasana. I means internalization. And Prajnanam Brahma is considered to be Manana Vakya, it is Lakshana Vakya. So, once we realize that our true nature, devoid of different conditions like Pramata, the one who is trying to understand and know word, or without any conditionings, the Pramada himself is the reality, the absolute reality, when it devoid of all these superimpositions. Papa doshadi varjitaha dekhatma prityayo idut pramanatvena kalpitaha laukikam tattvadevedam pramanatva atmanischayat. So actually this I want to practice spirituality, I want to study books, I want to meditate, I want to pray. All these ideas, they come to an end when we realize that what we are trying to meditate upon, what we are trying to realize is our own true nature. This is the highest experience. But remember, this is only the highest state of experience. It is not a concept, it is not a philosophy. Now, after this, I want to give just a brief introduction to the other Mahavakya, that is, I am Atma Brahma. That comes in the Mandukya Upanishad. It is from Atharva Veda. These are all interrelated. That is, Prajnanam Brahma from Aitareya Upanishad is Manana Vakyam, Lakshana Vakyam. When you listen to Tattvamasi, one may not fully understand. Then we have to do a lot of spiritual disciplines. That's because when our mind is not ready to understand what we are taught, then we normally go on studying, understanding, and gradually as our fitness increases, as we become more and more fit to understand and realize what we are taught, then we get a complete picture. Even in the academic field, this is what happens. In spiritual life, when a person gets instruction, any kind of spiritual instruction, he accepts it with a great sense of sanctity and sacredness, then he tries to understand it. How does he try to understand it? By reading again and understanding the meaning, then contemplating on the meaning. Remember, our mind has got a tremendous potential. At some point, our mind ceases to be mind, it becomes one with Atman. But it doesn't happen all of a sudden. And in spiritual life, there is a state called Mamani Bhava, where mind ceases to be mind. Even in the academic pursuit, you can see, or any area of instruction, education, you can see. When you study music, when you study an art, when you study literature, anything when you study, you first listen, and then we go on listening or reading, and then when you go on contemplating, when our mind goes deeper and deeper into what we read and what we understand, and when our mind it interacts with the meaning, it continues its contact with the meaning, manana. And manana means creating, we call it sajadiya pratyaya, means creating a positive connection with what you are trying to understand. Then a word can reveal more and more of its meaning. As we go deeper and deeper into what we have heard, what we have studied, with the same word, the same maybe statement, if you read again and again, it's a profound spiritual statement, then it reveals more and more its higher meaning. So this happens in spiritual life. And then nididhyasana. The nididhyasana is connected to the fourth Mahavakya mentioned, that is I am Atma Brahma. This I am Atma Brahma Mahavakya comes in the Mandukya Upanishad. I think it comes the second mantra, Sarvam Hyedat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, Soyam Atma Chadushpad. So this is actually is a description of Omkara. That means of course you have to understand the previous mantra. The previous mantra is this. It's Om itedad aksharamidam sarvam tasyupavyakyanam bhudam bhavad bhavishyatiti sarvam omkareva yaccha anyatrigaladidam tadapi omkareva. So, Omkara is explained here. I shall try to explain Omkara later. Omkara has got 19 different meanings according to Panini's grammatical system. I think I explained this earlier, but right now I am giving a brief description of the Mahavakya. So, what this mantra says is, everything is Omkara. Omkara includes, A, E, like that, the number of letters if you pronounce, if you go on repeating, you find. All these sound systems, consonants and vowel systems, they emerge from one source. And you cannot utter any word without uttering it either with closed mouth or open mouth or half closed or half open mouth. So, Omkara contains these three words, A, U, Ma. A is pronounced as an open vowel, mouth is open. Ma is closed, and U is half closed or half open, like that. So they refer to Trikala, means the past, present and future. And they also refer to the three levels of human consciousness. That is Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, or waking, dream state and deep sleep states. Now what this mantra tells you is, whatever you experience in waking state and whatever you experience in dream state and whatever you experience in deep sleep state, all these are included in Omkara, and beyond are also included in Omkara. So that fourth state, that's the state beyond Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, beyond waking, dream and deep sleep states, called Turiya state. That is our true nature. That is actually Omkara, and that includes everything. So, and then you know what happens when you realize this, you actually point out there is one reality that is present in all of us, with the ultimate witness called Sakshi, which is the indweller, it's called Antaryami, which is our true nature, which is our real being. And that Sakshi, the Atman, is Brahman itself. I am Atma Brahma. I am means this. So, turning the finger towards yourself, when you say the ultimate reality, the essence of the past, present and future, the essence of all our experiences in the dream, in the deep sleep and also in the waking state, all these are included in that Om, and this Atman is a symbol of that Om, and the absolute reality is actually beyond all this. And the absolute reality, the eternal witness, eternal Sakshi of all this. And that is Atman itself. So, this is an important thing. Now, this mantra has some interesting points. I shall explain this in the light of Shankaracharya's commentary in the coming session. Now, why do we say, or how can we say that this Atman is the eternal witness, the eternal seer, the eternal subject of all that we experience in the waking, in the dream and the deep sleep states. This Atman is not related to anything, but it is witnessing everything. It is present in all the three states, but it is not limited by any of the three states, because it includes all the states. In this context, Shankaracharya makes some very interesting statement which I read later. All the three states are included in Atman. But at the same time, it is called Turiya. Turiya actually means fourth. So the true meaning of Turiya is not fourth as the four legs of the cow, rather as different parts of the same coin. So that commentary comes later. I mean, suppose you say, this Sakshi, the witness transcends everything. And it's called Turiya. It is the fourth. Then you can say it like the four legs of a cow. If you think of the four legs of a cow, you know that each leg is distinct and different and independent of each other leg. So Shankaracharya will say, because I'm just giving an example, the genius of his commentary, which I discuss in the next class. So he says, it is not like the four legs of a cow, but rather it is like a coin. A coin, suppose let's say $1 coin. Of course, this is an ancient Indian coin. No, this that is a single coin, which includes the quarter, the half, and also 3/4. Suppose a coin, full coin, let's say $1, it contains 1/4 of a dollar, half a dollar, and 3/4 of a dollar. So it doesn't stand independent. It's all included within $1 coin. Like that, all the three states are included in the fourth state. And the fourth state is the eternal witness. Just like, suppose you have a house with 3 stories, and we can visit all the 3 stories because it's your home and it's your property. But a stranger cannot visit all the 3 levels of the building. He can only visit 1 story, not all the 3 stories, because he's limited there. So this Atman is the all-pervading eternal witness, and that Atman can only be described as what it is not and what it is. We cannot explain that. It can only be explained as what it is not and not what it is. This is a very important point. This is a unique teaching of this particular Upanishad. It's called negative theology. The absolute reality in Vedanta says that it cannot be described or defined or understood by using language, words, sentences, or tools of epistemology, direct perception, inference, analogy. None of these tools of theory of knowledge, epistemology, will be sufficient to reveal or explain or understand absolute truth. Because sarva pramanavadi is beyond all the pramanas. And it is also called Shabda Pravritti Nishedhaka, means it is beyond all verbalizations. You can explain, define, or describe something only in terms of what species it belongs to, or maybe what it does, or in what way it is related, or what are its characteristics. For example, a flower you can explain by its quality. It is red color, blue color, white color, etc. A human being you can explain in terms of what he does. Maybe a driver, a poet, or a musician, or maybe he is a painter, in terms of what he does, karma. So, jadi, that is species, you can say belongs to some animal species, or Homo sapiens, you can different species you can use to explain or define something or somebody. Or you can some characteristics of some work he does. For example, he is a painter because painting is what he does all the time. or he is brother, sister, and so on, human relations. So, jadi, guna, drevya, sambandha, all these are some of the characteristics that used to explain a person. Pancha Shabda Pravritti Nishedha. Jadi, guna, sambandha, karma, etc. Now, Brahman cannot be explained, Atman cannot be explained like that. Atman can only be explained by trying to explain what it is not. It cannot be explained as what it is. So, this is the first, one of the earliest examples of what is called negative theology in Christian in scholastic tradition. It's actually, it is attributed to Meister Eckhart, 13th century German theologian, who introduced negative theology. He says that God cannot be defined or described as what He is. God can only be explained as what He is not, because God is beyond all description, definition, all understanding or verbalizations. In this seventh mantra of this Upanishad is an attempt to explain what is beyond explanation. Na anta prakyam, na bahish-prakyam, na ubhayada-prakyam, na prajnanaganam, na prakyam, na aprakyam, adrishyam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achindyam, avyapadeshyam, ekatma-pratyasaram, prapanchopashamam, shantam, shivam, advaitam, chadurtham, manyante, sa atma, sa vijñeha. That atma is to be understood, is to be realized. That is chadurtham manyante. Chadurtha means it is considered to be the fourth, in the sense, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti and Turiyavastha. That is the waking state, dream state, deep sleep state, and a state which cannot be explained as a state at all. It is a transcendental state, beyond all this. So all the other three states are involved or included in the fourth one. The fourth one is not like the fourth leg of a cow, rather it is the $1 coin in which you can include the quarter, the half, and also three quarters of the coin. In that sense it is said here. And the Upanishad tells you that this Atman, this inner indweller, is not the seer of the dream state, not the experiencer of the waking state, not the experiencer of the deep sleep or sushupti state. Rather, it is something that cannot be seen by the senses, cannot be interacted with any of the five senses of perception or five senses of action. It cannot be intellectually understood. Again, it doesn't have any external characteristics. It is beyond all thought, beyond all contemplation, and it is ekatma pratyasaram. Ekatma pratyasaram. Where Shankaracharya commentary we'll read out later. It's very famous. The commentary to the seventh mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. Ekatma pratyasaram. How do we know it? When we actually think of ourselves as beyond the functions of seer, thinker, the person who moves, acts, these are all secondary functions. Behind all these functions, I'm eating food, but there is somebody else within me who is not eating food, who is actually the witness of the physical body, mind complex, which is eating food. And thinker, there is something within me who is not involved, who is actually witness of my own state as a thinker. So, like that, behind every function, there is a witness. There is somebody who is beyond that. So, you can think about Atman, but you cannot realize by thinking about Atman. You can read and discuss and debate, but you cannot realize it, because it can only be realized by the ekatma pratyasaram. Behind all these different functions of intellectual or scholastic activities, there is somebody or something within me who is the true witness of all that is going on everywhere. And that witness is unseen, unheard of, unthought of, unmeditated upon, beyond words, thoughts, and actions and contemplation. That's my true nature. So, by contemplating on this, who am I? Actually, this particular mantra is actually the original theological source of Ramana Maharshi's method. Who am I? This, and who is the true nature of my being? What am I? Who am I? I am not the one who is speaking. I am not the one who is seeing. But there is behind me somebody or something who is the witness of all this. And that witness cannot be explained, cannot be understood intellectually, cannot be thought of. That is beyond all functions, all verbalizations, all descriptions, all qualifications. So once we turn our inquiry towards ourselves, who am I, my true nature, then we will realize that Ekatma Pratyasaram, Shantam Shivam Advaitam. Shantam Shivam Advaitam. That's the nature of eternal peace, auspiciousness, one without a reality, one without duality, that is Advayam. And again, Advaitam, whatever it is, Chadurtham Manyande. Chadurtham, the word is used. So when I explain the Bhashya, you will understand more elaborately. It is called Chadurtham, the fourth, only in the sense of implication, because it is different and distinct, but still it includes all the three stages. It is the fourth in the sense it comes after waking, dream, deep sleep, and then Chadurtham, Turiya Avastha. That is Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, Turiya. So it may be understood as fourth, as the four legs of a cow, but that is wrong. It should be understood as fourth, which includes the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the quarter, the half, and 3 quarters, all included in one four. So this will be explained in the next session when we take up the Bhashya. It's a very interesting discussion. But one thing to remember is, in Vedantic tradition, the absolute reality can only be understood. It may be only understood when you try to understand what it is not. Because whatever we call as it is different from that. When we hear this is that, it is only an object of intellectual cognition. Whatever we understand through intellectual cognition, for that very reason it is unreal. There is something very funny in Vedanta. People will find it difficult to understand. If you see a watch in front of you, a book in front of you, the very fact that you have seen that book in front of you is a proof that it is not real. Why? Because when you see an object in front of you, what you are talking about is something that you have objectified. You are cognizing something using your mind and your senses of perception. And because you have realized, you understood it, using the mind and senses of perception, for that very reason, it is only a non-absolute, it is only an empirical reality. It cannot be the absolute reality, because absolute reality is beyond empirical perception. So Vedanta, if somebody tells you, I understood Brahman, that's a proof that he has not understood. At the same time, he cannot say he has not understood. So what's the real language of understanding? Silence. So there you can find Meister Eckhart in 13th century. He comes very close to Vedanta. I discussed Meister Eckhart's negative theology many times in the previous sessions. And because he dared to explain the reality by saying that it cannot be explained, he almost lost his life. So this is the interesting aspect of Vedanta. No, you can ask questions, you are most welcome. We will discuss in the light of Shankaracharya's commentary. Shankaracharya's commentary are very grand. It is Shantam Prasanna Gambhiram. That's the language used by the author of Bhamati, Vachaspati Misra, about Shankaracharya's language. We'll discuss that in the coming sessions. Thank you. Now we can have questions. Most welcome. Yeah.
You introduce the Mahavakyas in the following order.
Yeah.
Tatvamasi,
Yeah.
Upadesha Vakya,
Yeah.
for Shravana.
Yeah.
When you said Aham Brahmasmi,
Yeah.
is Anubhuti Vakya.
Yeah.
Then you said Prajnana Brahma, which is
Lakshana
Lakshana
Manana.
Vakya,
Yeah.
for Manana.
Yeah.
And then I am Atma Brahma, which is the
Nididhyasana.
Anusandhana Vakya.
Anusandhana
For
Nididhyasana.
Nididhyasana.
Yeah.
Instead, so this sequence, maybe it should have been introduced as Tatvamasi, followed by Prajnana Brahma, followed by I am Atma Brahma, followed by Aham Brahmasmi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that correct, Swamiji?
Yeah, I tell you. The reason why I took a different route was this. You know, I was explaining the four Mahavakyas as a spiritual journey. So first I explained Tattwamasi, then I explained Aham Brahmasmi as Anubhuti. I mentioned this earlier. There are two interpretations about this spiritual journey. One is called Sabda Aparokshvada, which belonging to Vivarna Prasthana and Vartika Prasthana. The other is Prasankyanavada, which belongs to Bhamati Prasthana. I explained this. Those who are fully endowed with sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, you know, this nitya nitya vastu viveka ihamutra phalabhoga viraga shamadhyasaka sampatti mukshutam and sarvanam mananam and nididhyasam. 7 disciplines. I mean, when you have a lot of, when you fully convinced that spiritual, I mean, Atman is only reality, and then when you give up all that is unreal, and you also develop all the qualities, like self-restraint, self-control, all this, and then you develop a strong urge for moksha, liberation, and then you also practice a lot of sravana, manana, nididhyasana. When you are fully fit and fully established in these disciplines, then even if you go to Berkeley Library and read a book, read, let's say, Chandogya Upanishad and 6th chapter, Uddalaka Shvetaketu. When you hear these, when you come back home, it will leave a great impact on your mind. If your mind is fully established in all these above mentioned qualities. It's a fact. You may not realize, but again then you look for an proper teacher to get instruction. Because your mind will move directly towards this higher ideal. You will have nothing else in your mind. Complete observation. That happened to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was living, meditating, praying, worshipping, singing bhajans all his life. So when Totapuri instructed him, immediately he went into samadhi. Aham Brahmasmi experience became a reality. That is true. Suppose you have got a very high grade in 5th grade, you go and sit in the 6th grade. The first lesson that they teach you at the 6th grade, immediately you will grasp, because you have fully mastered the lessons meant for the 5th grade classes. Because you are fully established in the fitness, even in ordinary life. So you don't have to do anything else. Actually, Shankaracharya says that the samakala eva, that is the real word. Samakala eva is when Santi comes, you know. The moment you listen to the Mahavakya, that very split moment, you will realize the truth of Brahman. Sadhanandaram, pramanandaram, sadhanandaram, namavrugyam. You don't require any other investigation or any other practices, any other disciplines if you are fully qualified. If you are not fully qualified, then you may go to Berkeley University, you may read Chandogya Upanishad, you may read Tattwamasi. Fine, it's a wonderful idea. You may be intellectually interested, but you are intellectually attracted. But when you get back to your home, you may forget all about it. Again, you will remember these higher truths. That is true. Even when you read a great spiritual book, its immediate impact will be there if you are a true spiritual seeker. It will be very profound. But if you are not fully established in the preliminary disciplines, then the impact will be very superficial. You may be drawn towards it intellectually, but after some time you may lose interest. Again you may be drawn towards it. It's a gradual process. So those who are not fully qualified, they have to read. It's called Sravanavarti. Means you have to listen to it again and again. Listening means you have to intellectually connect with that idea again and again. That's a great benefit of reading philosophy. So when we read these higher philosophical ideas, we are actually depositing some small checks in the spiritual bank. The more we read, the more we interact, the more we discuss, our mind actually accumulates more and more identical positive samskaras. And slowly it goes deeper and deeper. That goes Sravana. So Sravanavarti is Parimala Paddhati. Parimala Vedanta, Bhamadi, Kalpaduru, Parimala. So Amalananda and other Vedantins, they talked about this Sravanavarti. You should go on listening, go on reading. Tattwamasi Mahavakya, repeat. In other words, go on connecting your mind with spiritual literature. Giving spiritual food to the mind, that is Sravanavarti. And then thinking, manana, contemplating. And Vedantins will tell you that if not in this life, next life, through this Sravanavarti, continuous practice called prasankhyanam, means dhyanabhyasa, repeated practice, thinking, reading, again and again, you will reach your goal. So, if not in this life, after a few more life cycles, one may be born with this full qualification, and then again you will go to Vedanta. You know why you actually came to the Zoom meeting? Is because sometime in your previous life cycles, you are listening to all this. Otherwise, you will run away when you hear this. There is no entertainment, there is no sarcasm, there is no joke here. I know it should be very boring to those who are not interested. Very boring actually. If I were in your place and if I didn't have any interest, I would very boring, these Vedantic discussions. But because you are able to tolerate this, shows you have done a lot of meditation in your past life. This happens. And what happens, when we accumulate through reading, through discussion, when you accumulate more and more positive samskaras in the mental system, and then later on when you born in a family or in a set of circumstances, you get an opportunity to read this, discuss. It goes deeper because your mind is already ready. That is true also, Suppose a student is getting tuition from his parents every day, and he will be able to learn the lessons in a classroom very easily because every day his own parents and grandparents are teaching, coaching him. And he is coming to the class immediately what the teacher explains, he understands. Like that, when your mind is ready for it, slowly you start you develop a liking for it. You start liking it, you develop a liking, an attraction for this rather very boring, dry philosophy. Actually, I tell you, it's something very interesting. If one can develop these qualities, it actually is an indicator of our own evolution. Reading Aristotle may not take you to God, but reading Aristotle will certainly prevent you from taking many unpleasant and dangerous paths, dangerous roads in life. That's an important thing. Like that, Vedanta philosophy may not directly take you to God. Shankaracharya says, he himself says, go on reading scriptures, no use, he says, unless you practice. In one context, he actually uses some very strong language against we call intellectual pride and all that, But at the same time, he says the only way to save you is to go on listening, to go on reading, deeper and deeper. Slowly, when we go on accumulating these ideas, in a way we are preventing our mind from taking many wrong, going down many wrong channels. There are many unpleasant things which may attract and which may tempt the mind. When we take interest in philosophy, spiritual literature, we are actually turning our mind away from those unpleasant and sometimes even dangerous channels. That's the importance of poetry, philosophy, all this. Okay? So, you are right. I was trying to give a graphic description of the journey in intellectual space from Tattwamasi to Aham Brahmasmi, and then I wanted to explain the road we are taking. What is the road? Prajnanam Brahma and Ayamatma Brahma. That's the idea.
Hello, Swami. Yeah. My question is, what is the relationship of Holy Mother to Turiya? I know it's the bhakti path is different, but nonetheless, it's. I know that sometimes it's talked about. So what would be the relationship with because Holy Mother is different than us. Even Holy Mother is different than the illumined soul. So
yeah.
How is Holy Mother? Is there no difference from the relationship of Brahman between Holy Mother and the regular illumined soul, or is there something special in relation to Turiya, for instance, and Holy Mother?
Turiya actually in the Mandukya Upanishad and elsewhere, some other Upanishads also, there's a particular way of approaching Vedanta. And these different methods of approach are called prakriyas, methodology. So, avasthatraya prakriya means, avastha means the states of awareness, consciousness, dream, waking state, deep state. Avastha, 3 states of consciousness, awareness. Traya means 3. Prakriya means a method. So, the Mandukya Upanishad uses this method of reaching the highest spiritual truth by meditating on who is the witness, the seer, the experiencer, the eternal subject, which is present in all the 3 states, but which also beyond all the 3 states. That particular method of meditation is called avasthatraya prakrya. Avastha means state, Traya means 3. So, in different Upanishads, in different parts of Vedic literature, there are different prakriyas, different methods that you can find. But Shankaracharya actually gave this all very systematic vocabulary explanation of everything. Holy Mother's case is beyond all this. See, Holy Mother at any time, she was a Jivan Mukta state, ever liberated. So I mentioned this earlier. A liberated, a person who is eternally liberated but still living in this world. That person may be doing all the duties and responsibilities of an ordinary household. But deep within him or her, there will be the awareness that I am not this physical body or anything. Mother herself, towards the end of her life, she could detach herself from all her near and dear relations and others. She asserted her own identity. In Mother's life, you read Nikhilanandaji's life, Swami Tattwamayanandaji's life, you find Mother was assuming this human dimension in order to bless, in order to help the spiritual devotees. It's an important thing to remember. An eternally liberated soul, as such, may not be living in this world for the benefit of others. But it is believed, and some people claim to have seen, that even now in India, in some places, there are these eternally liberated souls. In many places, they still live. They may not be giving a lecture on the Zoom or anything, or even advertisement. But those who are doing that, see Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda was traveling all over the world. He was an eternally liberated soul. Shankaracharya is the forerunner of all these. He was an eternally liberated soul. But again he took up this role of preaching and teaching. So actually Mother herself, she was teaching all her life. She was teaching, guiding slowly. So remember, in almost 100% of the cases, the great spiritual teachers, even after realizing the highest spiritual realization, they don't keep quiet. They continue living, and when they are living, they become the light of the world. They become a blessing to others by teaching, by instructing. Sometimes by acting as ordinary human beings, but they reveal their unique spiritual quality in some circumstances, in some conditions. They do reveal. So in Mother's life we can see many, many instances when Mother revealed her own transcendental spiritual stature on many occasions. That you can find among many people. So one thing to remember, Sri Ramakrishna was so shy of publicity, but he was teaching all his life. Almost till a few minutes, almost a few hours before his passing away, Sri Ramakrishna was teaching. Vivekananda did not live in a forest. Almost a few days before his passing away, he was teaching Sanskrit grammar. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a liberated soul teaching Renan Martin when a normal person will have the stability of mind to teach old Renan Martin? Not very interesting, but very sufficiently boring. Do you think anybody could do that? See, Swamiji was teaching the equivalent of Renan Martin Sanskrit language, Lagu Siddhanta Kaumudi, which is a primer to the bigger Siddhanta Kaumudi, the standard book in Sanskrit grammar. So, a liberated soul was teaching grammar, mind you. You can imagine. And he was also talking about his plans, rather his future dreams. There will be a Vedic university, there will be an institution in Belum, but Swamiji used to take his other fellow disciples and talk to them about this before passing away. So you don't find any of these great spiritual teachers ever taking rest, going on a holiday. No. They never went for a vacation. Even think of Christ herself, a grand example in Western spiritual tradition, was teaching all his lifetime. So I don't think there is any exception to this rule. All great spiritual teachers were teaching right till the last moment of their life. Okay? So mention that. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.